Yeah, something big is coming. I'm getting ready for it. And the thing is, I wish I could have come up with a different title other than Great Gold and Silver Rush of the 21st Century. But I believe this is going to be the biggest gold rush in history. The amount of currency that has been created, the amount of true wealth that exists, and then all of that suddenly trying to seek a safe haven during periods of turbulence, which we are going into right now. And gold and silver have been suppressed, and some of the people that suppressed, there's been convictions of people that were accused of manipulating the price of gold. Now, these are more short-term manipulations, but long-term manipulations have existed as well. But in one chapter, to those people, I say that the manipulations have allowed me to accumulate gold at a lower price than it would have been if the free market was setting the price. And I say, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Enjoy your time in jail. Yes, they do want to keep prices lower. What was interesting, there's one little piece. During the pandemic, there were huge amounts of gold flowing into the United States. Normally, the United States is an exporter of gold, not an importer. And the COMEX was getting prepared they didn't want to face some sort of default. And if you look at that period of time, if you take the central bank purchases from China plus the Shanghai Gold Exchange, and you look at the inflows and outflows, China was accumulating, there were inflows. When you look at their exchanges and the central bank purchases, they only report once in a while. And I think they're actually accumulating more than they're admitting. But China's constant importation of gold stopped, as well did the rest of the world. And it was like suddenly all the gold was flowing to the United States to prevent some sort of default. And so it seems like there is something very big going on beneath the surface here. There's twice as much gold available above ground, but it really doesn't matter if there's enough people turning toward it yet, because there's basically 25 times, the population is larger. The people that can access gold you could not buy gold in the USSR or Mao's China during the last great gold rush of the bull market of the 70s, which, by the way, with the exception of cryptocurrencies, was the largest bull market there had ever been. People don't realize how big the 70s bull market in precious metals was. By the way, when I say that gold went up 25 times and silver went up 41 times, I'm taking the intraday highs and lows, so that is the maximum potential gains. But still, that is absolutely enormous. And until cryptocurrencies came along, that was the greatest bull market of all time. Now, cryptocurrencies, some of them will do well, maybe all of them in what's coming, but there has just been a lot of suspicion cast on them with the FTX scandal and other things that have happened in that sector. I do own some cryptocurrencies, but the vast majority of the largest portion of my net worth that's in a single area is physical gold and silver. If they went up 25 times for gold and 41 times for silver back in the 70s, and then you look at the amount of gold per person, the amount of gold that's available above ground is about twice as many ounces as back then. Except when you add up, there were no exchanges in Africa. South America was very poor. I remember when I was a kid, all of these commercials on TV trying to raise cash for these starving children. And so they would show starving children in Mexico, in places that are now not starving, where there are investors. There weren't any investors then. They were worried about what to get to eat tomorrow, not what to invest in. Gold is real money versus national fiat currencies. There's no nation on the earth that uses money today. And people need to start differentiating between money, because money makes, currency takes. Money is something that propels mankind forward. It's honest, it's fair. Currency is dishonest, it's fraud, and it's theft. And when you look at the way currency is created, when we used money, when we used gold, the amount of time and effort that it took to go out and prospect, find a claim, develop that into a mine the ore, refine the ore, melt it down, pour it into a bar, melt those bars and mint them into a coin, that amount of effort equaled the amount of effort that you had to work for in whatever you did to accumulate the right amount of coins of real money to be able to buy a house. And so this work was equal to the work that you had to put in, which is equal to the work that it took to cut down all of the trees, dig up all the dirt to make the copper plumbing and the cement and things, and build that house. It was a fair trade of something for something. When you use fiat currency, it's conjured into existence by a bank. When you're buying a house, you take a piece of collateral. You find a home that you want to buy. This is my collateral. I want to borrow $1 million. The bank looks at your financial record and determines whether or not you're a good risk if you can pay this loan back. And when they say yes, they imagine $1 million worth of bank credit currency, which is reminders that it's not actual dollars in your account, at least according to the Bank of England. It's reminders that they owe you a certain number of IOUs. This is the thing that I started with my first book, was differentiating between money and fiat national currencies, because the national currencies are not money, and people need to start differentiating these two things, calling them by their proper names. Money cannot store value currency cannot store value. Money does store value. I've got a silver Pegasus coin on my desk that was minted in roughly 500 BC. And if you melt it down, it still has purchasing power. The silver in it, the content, still has roughly the same purchasing power as it would have had back then. They bounce up and down in a range, but precious metals are the only thing that have proven themselves over the centuries to be money, a store of value. If you go to the Federal Reserve's website or any other place and you look up the definitions of money, what are the attributes that money has to have? And even the Federal Reserve, the very first thing they say is it must be a store of value. And then they go on with the other things, a medium of exchange, a unit of account, and so forth. So a store of value is the most important thing. So if somebody thinks that their currency, their national fiat currency, the US dollar, the euro, the yen, the pound, whatever, if they think it's money and they tell you, no, our currency is money, then ask them, does money need to be a store of value? Is that one of its functions? And they will say yes. Then ask them, is there inflation? If they say yes, then ask them, aren't those two things mutually exclusive? If it's storing value, how come prices are going up and it's buying less the next day, the next year? The way currency is borrowed into existence, national fiat currencies, they have to lose value. It is not possible for them to maintain their purchasing power over long periods of time. And it's just a function of the math behind borrowing currency into existence and promising to pay it back plus interest, and the currency to pay the interest doesn't exist yet. You have to borrow that in the future.